Hello and welcome to this episode of Focus On with me, Kiamo Musibili. We are in Cape Town at the fifth installment of the African Energy Week, where CEOs, investors, ministers, and those with a vested interest in the growth and opportunities that lie in Africa's energy sector come together. This year, we had the opportunity to speak to a number of industry players on the latest developments on what is growing and moving energy in the continent. As a gathering of so many dignitaries, businessmen, leaders who are coming together to discuss the Africa energy picture, I'd like to bring in yourself within the aviation and air travel space. I understand that one of the biggest priorities you have is expanding your operations far and wide into the African continent outside of your core operations in Nigeria. So beginning with today, what is it that you're seeking to achieve the most out of today's event?
Thank you very much for having me. Well, as we know, the oil and gas industry is a huge part of Africa's story. My country, for example, oil and gas makes up about 70% of the government's revenues. And it is quite important for us as an organization to come here and see how we can more or less support the oil and gas activities via means of ensuring proper logistics, movement around of people. As you know, many of these oil and gas institutions are vested in several parts of Africa, and solving those connectivity issues will be a huge part of our play here today.
So, when you make mention of the untapped oil and gas opportunities and the role air travel can play to expedite that process, the first thing that comes into my mind is the opportunity for intra-Africa collaboration, intra-Africa trade and travel. Looking at that and where you need to plug in, just explore some of the core objectives you have in place for that.
Yeah, absolutely. As we know, Africa is challenged massively by connectivity, infrastructure, sort of deficient infrastructure, such as air connectivity. And for us, with our jets, with our airplanes, we believe that we can bridge that connectivity gap. I'll give you an example. Flying from Lagos to Libreville, or even coming down here to Cape Town, 90% of the people who departed from Nigeria had to route either via Johannesburg, which is the closest, or Angola, Ethiopia. I even had colleagues who came via Luanda. So what we offer with our airplanes, more or less, is bridging that connectivity gap. We can fly point to point. We help executives who are time poor, right, who are essentially the leaders of change responsible for our hope for a renewed and industrialized Africa. And it is important that we are able to help these people, help these executives, help these leaders, help these captains of industries get to their meetings, get to their point of need, on time.
Sure. I know that also you are gaining good ground. I know that you are planning on expanding your operations. Just tell us more about that process.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been in the market of raising debt, about $25 million. I think we've completed $10 million out of that into purchasing more airplanes to add to our fleet. And essentially, we're going to see that progress until Q1 2026, where we hope to have a total of 8 airplanes, under our call sign.
Drawing in your company, particularly in the technology space, when we look at the objectives on, positioning Africa as a key and pivotal energy investment destination, but also the pressing need to keep Africa abreast of the global landscape of what's happening. Just let us know from your bird's eye view, what is the main strategy objective you have in place for this year?
For this conference. No, thank you, Kiamo. It's good to see you again. It's indeed a great conference again. Just the mosaic of people that we've seen attending the conference this year is quite remarkable. So we look at the Africa Energy Week as a really great platform for us to connect to our customers, primarily from all across the continent. And also an opportunity for us to discuss the most pressing challenges and the opportunities that we jointly as an industry have to address going forward. Obviously, the value of the industry It's unquestionable to the continent. And SLB, for us, due to our history and our legacy in the continent, we are certainly a key player, a key stakeholder in the space. So we utilize this avenue for us to, as I said, to connect with our customers, to talk about what we are working on, some of the latest developments in technologies, advances in mega trends, and above all, just connect to people. That's what we do.
But you've also spoken about your work and how it's an opportunity to truly spread the word on some of your daily activities and the ins and outs of your industry. I want to zero in on Champion X and break it down for us what that is, and more importantly, how is it assisting in terms of operational challenges and increasing efficiencies?
Absolutely. No, this is a great topic for us. Yes, so after, I will say, long and tedious process of seeking for regulatory approvals on worldwide basis, we managed to close the transaction in late July, beginning of August of this year. So we welcome around 8,000 employees of a former Champion X into the big blue family, as we like to call it. And this is really a pivot pillar into the production strategy of SLB, more specifically to the production recovery strategy, because it really allows us to basically to connect what we're doing on the hardware piece with advanced chemistry and build digital technology on top of it to really help our customers to maximize the production, to improve operational efficiency and extend the life of the assets. Doing this as we reduce the carbon footprint of their assets. So it has been a really good initiative for us. It's one of the key pillars in our production recovery strategy, which will allow us to really maximize the value of the customers. We know that the most of the oil production across the world comes from mature fields, and we also know the need that we have to continue expand the recovery. So the combination of what I said really will provide driving that extra value to our customers as we strive to explore and produce the last barrel in an economical, in a more sustainable way as well.
Another point I'd really like for us to explore is also exploring the geography. So how does this technology or this tool help to advance local capabilities, but also for those who would like to expand and look further afield? Is there an opportunity as well in terms of increasing regional access?
Absolutely. No. So the Champion X portfolio and the SLB portfolio are actually quite complementary. While the legacy SLB did have a production chemistry business, it was very small comparing to the magnitude and the size of the Champion X business. So when you put both of the pieces together, obviously you get an X factor, which allows us to expand more. I will talk specifically to the region that I proudly manage with the rest of my team. So allows us to expand, utilizing the infrastructure that legacy SLB has, to very rapidly expand the business of Champion X and really unlock value for our customers. So by doing so, we are able to respond to the most pressing needs of our customers. And as I mentioned, SLB does have a much larger footprint. The combination of the larger footprint, the capability, and the technology that Champion X brings onto the table, we are able to, on a very rapid scale, really to deploy these solutions at scale and hopefully deliver value to our customers.
I just want to really zero in on your company, SLB. What are some of the strategic impacts that digital technologies are having on Africa's energy landscape?
There have been a lot of discussion actually from the operator and the regulators on how we can untap, how we can unlock a lot of the reserves in Africa. So SLB is a global technology company. We have been operating in Africa for more than 90 years. And actually next year we are going to celebrate 100 years globally of operation. So what we do, we provide technology to unlock access to energy for the benefit of all. And when we look at digital technology, we have been providing technology in Africa to unlock some of the reserves. And in particular, I'll give you a personal example where I've been working in Brazil for the last 4 years before moving to Africa. And we developed the first fully autonomous digital drilling technologies. And we've seen the same technology apply in Ivory Coast, where we drill a well 90 days in advance and save millions of dollars for the operator. So that's one of the examples of how digital technology or AI can help to reduce costs and improve performance for the operator. We see that AI, digital technology as well are used for the operation. We see in the production and recovery space a lot of improvement being happening as we speak, and we can really leapfrog technology in Africa to improve performance. We've seen as well on the exploration space. Today we can de-risk exploration. We see some of our operators, they manage to go from license to spud in less than 6 months, saving millions of dollars for their operation. And the last point on digital technology where we have a big room to play is in decarbonization. So the SLB provide a lot of new technology in decarbonization. And to give you one example, in the past when we do well testing, we do a lot of flaring. And today there are technology that avoid to do any flaring. And that's just, if you take your technology like Aura, you can avoid to emit around 5,000, the equivalent of 5,000 cars that we can remove from the road by using this technology instead of another technology. So as a technology company, we have a big role to play to, unlock all the reserves, untapped reserve we have in Africa, and as well to help the upstream energy to decarbonize even further. So the team for AEW is making energy poverty history by 2030, and I think today we are in a good path to achieve that.
We are still here at African Energy Week, and it's not your first time here taking advantage of the gathering of industry leaders from across the continent discussing energy investment and access in Africa. Bringing in some of the most latest moves that you have made as a company, I'd really like to talk about your oil mining license 17. Just tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, it's an interesting asset. We acquired the assets from Shell, Total, and ENI in 2021, a deal we worked on for a number of years. When we took over the assets from Shell, who was the previous operator, the asset was doing roughly about 27,000 barrels of oil per day. When we took over the asset, within a period of about 100 days, we were able to take it to over 50,000 barrels a day. And the reason really is not because Shell is an excellent operator, as you know. But as you know, a lot of the IOCs began to have challenges in the onshore domestic market for several reasons. One of them is they were doing a portfolio rebalancing and focusing more on offshore. And also they were having challenges with the communities and working on the general challenges on the onshore side. So some of the simple things we did when we got into the asset was we took a brownfield excellence approach, and we were able to turn that asset around within a short period of time. Another thing that was important in doing the deal, of course, was the financing for the transaction. It took us quite a bit of time to piece it together because we came for the asset at a time when first of all, the liquidity in the local market had dried up. And internationally, a lot of lenders were not keen on going to onshore Nigeria because of all the risks that we had on it. But we were able to structure the deal in such a way that we de-risked all of that. And today, we are doing quite excellently well as far as the asset is concerned.
Like that you've mentioned risk and the perceived risk premium across industries on operating in Africa and making and positioning Africa a worthy place for investment. So how have you then managed to navigate those challenges and specifically in the development and the progress that you've made within here?
That's a great question, and I say that because one of the most difficult thing that we had to face when we're trying to do the deal is convincing the world that the risk that they have of Africa is perceived and not nested in the reality of what takes place in the market. And so we went on a drive, and this took a bit of time, to educate and to demonstrate that there are risks in the market, but there are risks that can be managed and mitigated. And if to answer the question specifically, some of the things we did was, in understanding how a lot of the lenders or investors, how they think about risk, we're able to identify a number of the risks that was a problem for them, and then structure the deal in a way and manner that those risks are addressed. And that's why we were able to raise roughly about $2.5 billion for that transaction, simply because we're able to show them that, yes, the risk exists, but this is how we are going to address the risk. And for you as an investor, this is how that risk is mitigated for you to be able to make that investment in the asset. There are a lot of specifics around it, but this is the general idea that gives you a sense of what we had to do to deal with that.
And that's quite important, and it's quite interesting. As you've mentioned, the space heavily being dominated by international players, and the growth and the maturity is starting to reflect from African, homegrown solutions. But then when we then take a lesson out of your book, Nigeria, or Africa's oil giant, and its own lessons, and we impart that on the rest of the continent. What do you think are some of the things that need to happen for other countries who are looking for solutions?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, so first thing I would say is that I believe, as far as upstream oil and gas is concerned in Africa, we are going through what I would call a generational transition. There's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we are experiencing, where we are seeing a shift from, I won't call it a shift, where we are seeing the onshore oil and gas transitioning from the hands of the IOCs into indigenous oil and gas companies and regional independents. And it's interesting because what you're seeing now is that the generational shift is showing that, as far as ownership, operatorship, and financing of upstream oil and gas in Africa is concerned, onshore upstream oil and gas in Africa is concerned, that is now falling into the hands of Africans. And this is so important because it feeds into the fact that we as Africans need to take control of our own energy security. We need to take charge of the fact that in Africa, for example, and this is just an aside, in Africa, Africa has the lowest energy consumption in the world. We are 5 times lower than the world average, 20 times lower than that of the US. In fact, as far as electricity consumption is concerned, Africa, on a per capita basis, consumes less electricity than an average fridge in the US. So we as Africans need to take charge of that problem and fill that gap. And I think the generational transition that is taking place with the whole shift with IOCs, moving a lot of the onshore assets to independents and indigenous companies, puts a lot of responsibility in our hands as indigenous players to help fulfill the dream of meeting that energy gap that we have on the continent.
Just a brief look back on this gathering of industry leaders who are invested in the growth and progress of the African energy sector. What has been the movements or the latest news on that front?
First of all, Kiamo, thank you so very much for having me. Well, 5th installment of Africa Energy Week is an amazing achievement in our eyes because we have started a conversation, is the way we look at it, when we started Energy Week. And what we intend is to ensure that this conversation is not just talk, but ultimately leads to action. And so as you ask, what is so key about this particular edition and what we're expecting over the next couple of days is that there is a flurry of a pipeline of deals. These are actual deals that have come out of conversations that we've been having all along the time. We are seeing, for example, Etu Energias, which is an Angolan company that is signing a multi-million-dollar facility to be able to increase exploration in Angola. We're certainly seeing the IEF together with the government of Sierra Leone to be able to promote more exploration as well as energy collaboration between companies in the IEF ecosystem together with Sierra Leone. So for us, these are practical things that are happening, and these are just those that are being said in the open. There are a flurry of deals that we're ultimately seeing that are happening in that sense, which we're very proud about because they lead to actual jobs, they lead to actual dollars being invested. And this is the reality that we need in Africa.
I can't help but think about unique, I could argue, selling point about this conference is its Pan-African presence, where a number of African countries come together. So when we look at inter-African trade, when we look at regional integration, how instrumental is this platform, or how much of a priority is the deals that are being made here?
Oh, Kiamo, this is an amazing question. It's absolutely spot on. You see, I just spoke about A2 Energias. They're signing a deal with Mauritius Commercial Bank. That is the intra-African trade that we're looking to do. They're going to be using service companies out of South Africa. That is the kind of deals that we are looking to promote in that sense. Intra-African trade, particularly in the energy space, is very important for the development of this continent. We need to be able to ensure that we can reduce the barriers for people to be able to trade. And what Africa Energy Week is so great as is bringing everybody once a year to Cape Town for a week to be able to do those deals and to be able to engage. We will continue to do that. I do believe that that is the future. We need to collaborate as African countries. But collaboration amongst African countries, African companies, does not mean excluding others. Let us be very clear about that. We do need capital from outside. We need technology from outside. All we are saying is that African countries themselves need to engage more, interact more, do more deals together, in as much as they are open for deals that are coming from outside, as well as finance and technology that is coming from outside. That's the future. If you're going to have load shedding in South Africa, somebody who is in Kilelesha, who's in Durban, or who is anywhere, doesn't really matter significantly where the investment is coming, if at all they can get affordable and reliable power, which is coming out of some of that investment. Of course, those guys need to pay taxes and to be able to ensure that we can drive South Africa's economy. But we need to ensure that at this conference and at other fora, you have what it takes to be able to drive investment into the oil and gas and energy space in Africa.
As we look at the 2025 leg of the African Energy Week, what is interesting is as the gatherings of the different corners of the continent come together and propose their vested interest, when we look at the legal and regulatory frameworks, when we look at the environment that allows intercontinental growth and trade, I want to bring you in from your legal background and perspective. How complex are the legal frameworks that allow for inter-African trade and investment in energy?
Thank you very much. So, for so long we've been looking at the way to integrate Africa across different sectors, and I think energy is one area that we can actually bring Africa together. We've seen the AFTA, which was signed by African countries. I think the problem we have right now is just the implementation of some of these agreements that we have. Of course, there's also the challenge of the people's acceptance of this integration. I think the culture of the different people that we have across Africa is also a challenge to the integration of African market. I believe, we've always said Africa is not a country, and that's real. Because we have people with different backgrounds, with different cultures, and with different with different ways of accepting changes on how it affects their personal lives. So that has always been the concern that we have in terms of integrating inter-Africa trade, and I think that's also what has been affecting the way we're able to implement AFTA that we currently have. Yeah.
So when we zero in on Nigeria and some of the advents that are coming out of the country, quickly talk to us about the impact of the Nigeria Petroleum Industry Act.
Yes, it was an act that took very long for us to get there. It was signed in 2021, and it's been implemented by the relevant regulators established under it. Since its effectiveness in 2021, we've seen a lot of change in the industry, and it's something that we've always wanted for a long time, because the the oil and gas market in Nigeria needed a change, needed a regulatory overhaul. And what PIA brought, that's Petroleum Industry Act brought, was that overhaul. And then we find a way that we've seen that now there's more. There's a promotion of more investment into the market. We've seen recently, last year there was a bidding round. Another bidding round is currently being considered, which happen next year. So these are the sort of things we want to see. We want to see more investors come into the market. We want to see the market being more open. We've seen a lot of mergers and acquisitions that have happened since the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act. Things are clearer now. The midstream and downstream sectors that weren't properly provided for in previous laws have now been properly covered under the Petroleum Industry Act, and we have started seeing the effect of this. So these are sort of things that we want to see, and this is what Petroleum Industry Act has brought for.
And another leg of ensuring growth is coming together as collaboration from various industry players and stakeholders. And when we look at the role of the legal and regulatory function of building and investing in energy in Africa, what do you think are some of the ways that those frameworks can improve to ensure not only internally from the countries but also neighboring countries that allows for collaboration?
Yes, so I think the first thing is for us to understand the people. And I think that's where most times we get our regulations wrong. If we don't understand the people that will be affected by these regulations, I think we are going to suffer the ability to implement those regulations. So I think what's the hindrance to having these regional collaborations often stems from lack of understanding of the people of that area and being able to let people see the benefits of these regulations that we are bringing for them. So when we get to the point where we have common shared objectives, shared interests, even among the people in local areas, we're able to get to a point where we can start pushing for collaboration. But I think where Africa, and that's where we're heading. But at this time, we still need to understand our people a bit better in order to promote collaboration across Africa.
And that's how we close off this episode of Focus On at the Cape Town International Convention Centre, where the African Energy Week 2025 was hosted. From renewables, oil and gas, the future of African energy was certainly explored in today's event. From me, Kiamo Mosepele, and the rest of the CNBC Africa team, it's goodbye for now.